I now take this opportunity to introduce to you a pioneer in healthcare delivery systems, Dr. Jitendra Sharma. Dr. Sharma had joined the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning for his Bachelor's of Science degree at Prashanthi Nilayam and joined the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences as hospital administrator as per the divine command. He is known for his active involvement and contributions at the general and super specialty hospitals at Prashanthi Nilayam. He has led several projects in healthcare technology and carried out research studies in leading institutions from AIIMS New Delhi to WHO Switzerland. Dr. Sharma has authored 25 research papers, several technical compendiums, and two books, besides contributing to a number of WHO reports. He has been a designer and coordinator for several technology driven health programs in India and teaches courses on health policy and health technology in several global institutions. Dr. Sharma has two doctoral degrees to his credit. He has been trained in global institutions like AIIMS New Delhi, PMDA Japan, Uppsala Monitoring Center Sweden, Harvard School of Public Health USA, and so on, along with his alma mater Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning Prashanthi Nilayam. In the former years, Dr. Sharma has established the Healthcare Technology Division at NHSRC under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. He was the founder director of WHO Collaborating Center for Medical Devices. At Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences, he was the advisor consultant to WHO and advisor to Health Technology Innovation Center at Indian Institute of Technology. Having grown professionally sound with rich experience in the healthcare sector, Dr. Sharma is currently heading the Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone as Managing Director and Founder CEO. This zone has been the Asia's first medical devices manufacturing park. Along with this position, he has been occupying multiple roles such as Founder Executive, Director of Kalam Institute of Health Technology, Member Secretary, National Medical Devices Promotion Council, Founder Chairman, Medivalley and BioValley, Adjunct Lecturer, University of Adelaide, Australia, Chairman, Indian Biomedical Skill Council, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Niti Aayog, Government of India. Recently, Dr. Sharma has been awarded the European Union India Young Leaders Award at EU Parliament, Brussels, for his distinguished work in medical technology sector. With this introduction, I now invite Dr. Jitendra Sharma to take over. Dr. Jitendra Sharma.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. At the outset, wishing all of you a very warm Sairam and Happy New Year. I also have two disclaimers to give before I start my talk. I come from a medical technology and healthcare background. So I will try to integrate the discipline of chemistry and the advancement with the challenges we are facing in the current medical technology scenario in the country. And therefore, it will be the talk will be more of application and integration and not of science alone. The disclaimer too is when I was doing my chemistry discipline at Prashanthi Nilayam campus, there was a hypothesis that my brain is chemically inert, that even if hours and hours of chemistry across multiple semesters is poured on my brain, my brain wouldn't still react with it. And until the conclusion of my studies there, the hypothesis could not be rejected. So you will have to also keep in mind that the limitations around my understanding of chemistry, while I share with you some developments that are changing the face of global health. I share with you my presentation, but before I share the presentation, I would like to share and let me know on chat or on voice if you are able to see my screen when I start sharing. I want to show you some live shots of CCTV camera that is being captured on the same desktop I'm using for this conference. And the reason why I am showing is how do I share the screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen.
Yeah. Do you see some people working on the manufacturing of COVID kits?
Yes, we are able to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So India is testing about 5 lakh, about 9 to 10 lakh COVID diagnostic kits per day. That's our consumption of viral RT-PCR kits, viral transport media, and an RNA extraction kit. And almost half of that, that consumption, which is 5 lakh per day, is the target that my campus has for supply. Similarly, this is a live assembly of what we use for ventilators. Again, 100 ventilators per day is the target. Now, the reason why I'm showing these live pictures is whatever we are discussing today eventually needs to find application in the common task of the community and in the production lines of the facilities that serve the patients. Now, keeping this in mind, I want to share with you my presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Right. Yeah. If you are able to view it in the full screen mode?
Yes.
Right. Now, my presentation would last for about 20 minutes, and then I will look forward to questions. The reason why my presentation is on medical technology is for the simple reason that whenever we talk of healthcare, we define healthcare globally as UHC, Universal Health Coverage. Now, this universal health coverage, and I'll tell you exactly where chemistry and translational chemistry fits into this. This universal health coverage is a cube in which there are 3 axes, and this cube conceptually is classified as the base of the cube, the length of the cube, is the people whom we want to cover in a healthcare situation, in a healthcare planning. The breadth of the cube is the services which we want to care for. Should we cover, for example, cancer? Should we cover cardiology? Should we cover immunization? Should we cover cosmetic surgery? Should we cover gender change surgery? Should we cover accident and trauma? These are choices a decision maker has to make. And the height of the cube is the extent to which we cover. Do we cover only surgery? Do we also cover laboratory? Do we also cover medicine? Do we also cover follow-up care, etc., etc.? Now, everything starts with the smallest possible cube, and the society or the association or organization has to take a decision, or the government has to take a decision on which way to expand. Because universal health care is when we cover everyone for all the services fully. That's the maximum possible expanded cube, which is not possible because it's an ideal situation. And therefore, the World Health Organization in 2005 promoted a principle that while covering for healthcare, we should start with everyone in the society without discrimination, which means the length of the cube should be fixed first. Then we should cover them fully, which means there should not be marginal coverage or partial coverage of the population that we aim to cover. And then we should keep on adding services from one to another, to another, to another, expanding the width of the cube, the breadth of the cube, which means the length of the cube, which is to cover everyone, the height of the cube, which is cover fully, needs to be fixed first, and then the services needs to be augmented to capture the width of the cube so that the society reach universal health coverage. So this is something which you would see in the Satya Sai Healthcare Mission itself, exhibited two decades before even this conceptually was coined. Because we had a health system that covered everyone without discrimination fully, and the services kept getting added. Now, when you add services, the services can range from immunization, which is you see on the bottom left of my slide, to robotic cardiac surgery, in which the robotic arm itself costs 16 crores. And we need to make choices of what to cover. It almost is synonymous with an Indigo or EasyJet flight economy to a Emirates first class first seat. You fly the same route at the same time. It is what you enjoy in the travel which defines your coverage limit. Now, the reason it is very important to understand universal health coverage is that when we break healthcare into inputs, we have 4 inputs. One, which is the land and the civil structure, construction, land, etc., which is never in the control of healthcare itself. It's a real estate sector, the revenue sector that controls it. We have human capital. Most of us, all of us would like our salaries to only increase and not go down. The salaries of people working for us also to increase, which means this is a cost center we will never be able to keep in control. Fourth is the drugs, in which even the previous speaker was mentioning, India is the global pharmacy when it comes to formulations, which means low-cost pharmaceutical products are no more a challenge. While the ingredients, the APIs could be a challenge, the net output as low-cost, affordable pharmaceutical products is not a challenge. Then what is left? What is left is medical technology, a sector which has remained orphan for decades, while it costs about 60% of any hospital. I say this as orphan sector because everything has almost avoided touching medical technology. And that's why while we are a global exporter in medical technology, we are a global exporter in pharmaceutical products, we are a global importer as a country in medical technology. So much so that even courses of chemistry in the graduate and master's curriculum have topic elective modules of medicinal chemistry, but not medical technology chemistry. That elusive has been the medical technology sector. This is my last slide on the non-science part of the presentation. You see, India's market of medical technology in 2019-20 has been about 60,000 crore. 60,000 crore, in which almost 42,000 crore is met by imports. No, only 18,000 crore is exported. We are a net importer. Almost 78% of our needs are fulfilled by imports. What does this import consist of? What does our medical technology market consist of, and where chemistry can play a role? You see on the top right corner, we have the breakup of market share of medical devices, in which India is a very, very small 1.6% compared to the rest of the world. But what is important is what you see on the left of the slide, which is medical devices, a segment share. In vitro diagnostics, which makes 15.5% of the 60,000 crore market, almost 10,000 crore is in vitro diagnostics, something which has direct and critical application of chemistry. Cardiovascular devices, which is second 2.2, has multiple products, but the drug-eluting stents are essentially a hybrid of chemistry and science, physics and mechanics. Drug-eluting stent, that is cardiac stent, we using sirolimus drug coating on it, is again application of chemistry. Orthopedic devices, which is also interesting, is actually core chemistry. It has never been realized that actually orthopedic implants are nothing but chemical formulations, and I will have my next slide to show that. Ophthalmic devices to some extent, renal care devices and so on, almost 40% of entire medical technology that we see is chemistry. Yet, there is nothing on medical technology chemistry that is talked about, taught, or discussed. And therefore, I must compliment the organizers of this conference also to have a couple of talks on medical technology and applications of chemistry. What we did was medical technology manufacturing requires several high investment facilities which are very capital intensive in nature. And therefore, with the support of multiple ministries of Government of India, we set up world's first medical technology zone where all the facilities are available for manufacturing of medical devices. Now, I'm going to share 3 case scenarios with all of you. And these are case scenarios where there is future for students, where is future for research, and where there is application required immediately. Now, most of you would know what is a hip and a knee implant, and there are multiple categories of hip and knee implants. They are ceramic on ceramic, ceramic on polyethylene, titanium, ceramic on copper, and so on. But what is not known much is that in the manufacturing process of a medical implant, an orthopedic implant, which is almost 7,000 crore of market in India, and certainly lakhs of patients needing it, in the entire process of making of the orthopedic implant, which India makes substantially today, there is one ingredient which is high molecular weight, ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. It's a key material used in all the orthopedic implants, and there are only 3 manufacturers of ultra high molecular weight polyethylene globally. So much so that 1 feet of the rod that you see in the center of the slide, the UHMWPE rod, 1 feet costs about $450. And that is why the cost of orthopedic implants, both hip and the knee implants, is exorbitantly high. Now, the reason why I am mentioning this is that these are long chains with molecular mass between 3.5 to 7.5 million AMU, which serves to transfer load effectively on the polymer backbone and supports and strengthens the intramolecular interactions, giving us a very tough material which takes the load of the body and all the pressures, mechanical pressures that fall on the body. India doesn't make this. We have recently started a project of making ultra high molecular weight polyethylene for supplying to various implant manufacturers in India. We are looking for technologies engineered by R&D institutions in universities who have competency in this sort of work, not for the making of implant, but for the making of UHMWP. Because once we are able to make UHMWP, we can actually support making of implants in a big way. We can discuss more on the production flow chart, which is from the resins to RAM extrusion, hot iostatic pressing, compression molding, and direct compression molding, getting into milling, and then medical grade UHMWP. But UHMWP is a lock that can open the UHMWP is a key that can open the lock for very affordable orthopedic care in the country. The second example is, of course, something which Satya Sai Institute has already proven, which is the RT-PCR kits for COVID diagnostics. I'm told there is a kit already engineered by the research faculty and students in the university. What would be important is to take forward such innovations into product realizations, where the innovative scientific support that has been provided by the university and the experts can actually be converted into production of lakhs of kits per day. This is a simple flow chart. I'll be leaving this slide, but this is more from the perspective of post-innovation. Once you have completed innovation, what do we do in order to convert this innovation into production of RT-PCR? Again, the quality check of RT-PCR instrumentation, and the third and the most important technology in which there is a much needed application of chemistry is dialysis. Almost 3 crore dialysis sessions are held in India every year for patients under the national dialysis program in the private sector and public sector. Now, dialysis is a very peculiar condition. One, patient needs dialysis almost 2 or 3 times a week. 2, dialysis has multiple ingredients. The disalate, which is a chemical entity which goes as solvent into the dialysis machine. The dialysis machine itself, which is an electromedical unit with motors, pumps, sensors, and so on, and a dialyzer. Now, dialyzer is again, and this is very peculiar because of our lack of thirst on medical technology and application of chemistry in medical technology. India has almost got left out of this value chain of bringing in innovative products, and has got largely become import dependent now. Now, dialyzer is just a 1-feet container that goes into dialysis machine. Now, this dialyzer is nothing but a polysulfone membrane. But the problem is, this polysulfone membrane has to be spinned through, because every foot of every cylinder, which is a dialyzer, has almost 2.2 kilometers of membrane in it, which shouldn't break. So when the blood goes through these membranes, the urea and creatinine of the blood gets out of the blood, and the blood goes back into the body, and that is dialysis. But actually, it is not the dialysis machine, but the dialyzer which does the magic. Within this dialyzer, the polysulfone membrane spinning technology is something which is available only with 2 companies, 2 entities globally. Again, what do we use? We use cellulose triacetate, polysulfone, derivatives, polyester, ethylene, 7 or 8 ingredients, yet the exact density, formulation, and spinning of dialyzer membrane, which is shown in the flow chart on the right side of the slide, how the polymer solution in the bore liquid comes into the coagulation bath, how is the spinneret used, leading to the washing units, washing the membranes, treatment and winding, leading to membrane production. This entire chemical process has not been mastered by any entity other than the 2 that exist globally. And today, a membrane which should cost less than 140 rupees is sold at 1400 rupees, making dialysis actually a very unaffordable process. Again, the manufacturing process of dialyzer membrane, which was shown pictorially in the flow chart, is now shown as a line diagram. It's all chemistry. And what is surprising is that despite almost 40% of medical technology in the hospitals today coming from chemical or chemistry oriented applications, actually medical technology has always been on the back seat. And therefore, my one reason of joining in this conference was to share with the audience that there is a huge application of chemistry waiting to be absorbed in medical technology sector. Two, the ultra high molecular weight polyethylene project for implant manufacturing, the ingredients for implants, the Rtpcr production engineering, and the dialyzer polysulfone membrane spinning are three projects of a very large scale of national importance, of multiple benefits to society, where we do look forward to interest from the faculty, from the students, from the researchers, in ensuring that we integrate the knowledge which is being generated in marvelous institutions of learning like the university there, and integrated into product realization that benefits the patient. Again, some pictures of thousands of people working tirelessly from the month of March in our campus, all around chemistry. Actually today, in COVID, if life has been saved, it wouldn't have been possible without application of chemistry. If today in medical technology, we are furthering our work on cancer treatment using radioisotopes, on renal care, on drug-eluting stent, on implants, on in vitro diagnostics, it wouldn't have been possible without the application of chemistry. And my request is, in your vast application of chemistry and chemical technology, please do not forget that there is one input ingredient of healthcare called medical technology, which has remained quite out of focus, which has huge potential and huge opportunities for the budding researchers, professionals, students, and faculty, because this is where the life-saving future of society lies, and this is where the market potential lies. With that, thank you very much for the opportunity. I will stop sharing the slide, and Jai Hind and Sai Ram to all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma, for the interesting presentation about what exactly happens behind the scene for almost all of this medical technology, and also the medicines. So here I have a few questions in hand regarding how we can move forward with this kind of understanding of this medical technology scenario in India. So maybe as a basic understanding for the sake of students, I would like to just ask about Dr. Sharma mentioned about the universal healthcare. So as I understand, universal healthcare will comprise of the different categories like primary healthcare, secondary, and then tertiary, and then quaternary. And given the size of India, also the coverage of this healthcare technologies to the general public, we have several drawbacks. I think we are severely lagging in terms of providing even primary healthcare to the Indian public. And in this situation of COVID-19 pandemic, I think it is almost like a combination of from primary till quaternary healthcare, which comes into as a single unit. So how exactly at an institutional level, as a director of this institute, how do you see this will be catered to all the people?
Yeah, well, my institute is the campus and the institution that that I head here is more on manufacturing. But in my role as senior advisor with Niti Aayog in the healthcare vertical, I can share with you that, there are two things in healthcare. One that goes in, one that comes out. What you mentioned, primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, tertiary healthcare, rehabilitative and palliative healthcare, regenerative healthcare, and there are about 7 verticals. They are the requirements. What comes out are two things. Is the clinical care good? And number two, while acquiring that care or the basket of care and services, was there a financial catastrophe on the family? Because if out-of-pocket expenditure, as we call it OOP in health economics, out-of-pocket expenditure, OOP. Now, if that, generally the parameter is, if in a family, the out-of-pocket expenditure on healthcare is less than 10% of non-food expenditure, it's considered to be acceptable. So in a non-food expenditure of a household, if the healthcare non-food expenditure, like school, house rent, electricity, and so on, if the expenditure on healthcare goes beyond 10%, we define it as catastrophic expenditure. Now the plan is to balance the outcomes so that the expenditure on household shouldn't be catastrophic while acquiring health services, while providing for what we can provide. And therefore, Ayushman Bharat, the scheme that has been launched by the central government three years ago, empanels private hospitals for almost 1,400 services, where while the services are provided by private, government, NGO, not-for-profit hospitals, the cost of that care is provided by the government. But that's the model in which you use existing infrastructure, not just in government setup, but also in private setup, in NGO setup, in foundation setup, in trust setup, and so on, ensuring that they become part of a societal healthcare plan. And the catastrophic expenditure is avoided because the cost of care is paid for by the government from taxpayers' envelope. But the challenge remains, what do we cover? And you very rightly mentioned, actually, primary care is not something which is on the back foot today. India is fairly good in primary care, but I think the maternal and child care, the secondary care, which is a whole lot of stomach and gastrointestinal ophthalmology, which is missing, all of which have been taken care in Ayushman Bharat as coverage. And also after COVID, we would realize that we have neglected not lot of non-communicable diseases like cardiac care and cancer care. And I think the cancer care is going, the cancer rate is increasing at a very alarming pace. Now, what is important to also know is that the whole world is talking about COVID vaccine, right? And there are many candidates, there are many approvals, there are loads of millions of people waiting everywhere who are otherwise healthy for a vaccine. Now, look at cancer that kills much more than COVID every year. And the only cancer which is one of the two largest cancers in women is cervical cancer. Breast cancer and cervical cancer are the highest in women, the largest cancers. And the only cancer that is treatable with which is preventable using a vaccine is HPV vaccine, human papilloma virus vaccine. And that HPV vaccine is not yet on our decision table, while we are talking of COVID vaccine, which is important. And therefore, a very calibrated approach to provide care, because vaccination is primary care. But if you provide HPV vaccine, you are actually eliminating the need for cancer, which is a tertiary care. And therefore, this calibrated approach is necessary, in which we should find newer and newer application of science such that the cost of care reduces and the ability to provide care within the same resource envelope increases. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that was an interesting insight about how it should be exactly. So, okay, moving on to the next question. So, sir also mentioned about the knee implants and the hip implants. So like, if I'm not wrong, like a few years back, there was a big coverage about the Johnson and Johnson hip implants, which were like uh, notorious for their after activity, especially like after 1 or 2 years of the activity. So like how like Medtech Zone is like taking up steps like to bring out new products, or which might be like an economical alternative to the already existing like expensive hip implants or the in general implants.
Right. I'll try to answer this question in brief, but you have actually asked a very important question. It's not just implant. Anything can give a reaction. And therefore, when the reaction is caused, and therefore we have monitoring systems to tap and trace and monitor the reactions that are of adverse nature. When we do that for blood products, when we track reactions in blood products, we call it hemovigilance. When we track adverse drug events, we call it pharmacovigilance. When we track adverse events due to vaccines, we call it biovigilance. And when we track adverse events due to, like the one you mentioned, due to medical devices and implants, we call it materiovigilance. Materiovigilance program of India was designed by me. We designed this in 2015, and now it's operating across 28 centers in the country, including Medtech Zone. So it's a national program. Now, generally, every product has a side effect. And therefore, when I studied pharmacovigilance in Sweden, one of my teachers actually, his opening presentation slide used to be, all drugs are harmful, some also have little use. Because the harm associated with technology is given. It's an artificial product and it will have a limitation around it. But we trade off that limitation because it has some potential use. Now, the side effects and the adverse events due to hip implants, knee implants, everything is monitored using an IC score. An IC score is the score of log 20 for the adverse events divided by the adverse events that are declared to be having in the product. So having an adverse event with knee implant or hip implant, as you mentioned, is not wrong, provided the adverse event rate is less than or equal to what is already declared for that product during the production and market authorization. And therefore, I would encourage all of you to actually go to the website of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, where you have information on PVPI, which is the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, and MVPI, the Materiovigilance Program of India, to see how we absorb the adverse events due to implants, wrong diagnosis using IVDs. Now, just imagine if an Rtpcr says yes for no and no for yes. It's an adverse event, right? And there are methods to tap these adverse events across the medical products value chain, the vaccine, the blood products, the medical technology and pharmaceuticals, each one having a system around it. And you can find more information on PVPI and MVPI.
Thank you, sir, for the insights. Yeah. So, like as you mentioned about this RT-PCR test, like I would just add in another question. Like, how about the quality assurance in this kind of like RT-PCR kits? Like, for example, whenever you are using kits, like it should be like first used. So, how do you ensure that those kind of kits are like foolproof, or they don't give this false negative or false positive reports?
Yeah, so the quality control on the RT-PCR kits is actually in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the actual validation that happens in an ICMR approved lab like NIV or NARI or National AIDS Research Institute or National Institute of Virology, NICED Kolkata, and so on. Now, these institutions do their core validation using primer, probe, master mix that are standardized for that infection. And that is why they are reference labs. So that's first phase of quality control. The second phase of quality control is what I showed on my slide, is batch to batch control. What is the engineering ability of a production line to ensure that the validation formula that was sent to a reference lab is harmonized through the various batches of production? because if it is not harmonized, then two batches would be different. And the third phase of quality control is post-market surveillance. Once it has gone into the market, are we able to pick samples of that RT-PCR test across several brands, send it to the same reference lab for cross-validation? And a good system of quality control keeps these three things in check. Currently in India, we have very good evolving system of quality control of first phase, which is validation using a reference lab. To some extent, we are getting there as a country on the production batch to batch quality control and validation. And we are actually as a country far away from post market surveillance, which is spontaneous monitoring of quality in the market.
Okay, so yeah, so now I got it. Like I believe like we all the audience have got a like good idea about like how this quality control is taken care in case of this PCR related kits or in general these kits. So like moving on to the next question. So being a director of this kind of medtech zone where like it takes care of the production of various kinds of medical technology instruments and devices. So how about the cradle to grave analysis or cradle to cradle, like when once it goes to the end user, like after its lifetime, what happens to those kind of products? Like they go into the recycle mode, or like they are just left? Because in current times, environmental concerns are a main priority.
So and that's also an important question, because in India there are biomedical waste management rules. Anything which is a bio waste, whether it is a defibrillator with a battery inside, and the battery has to be decomposed in a battery has to be taken care of in a very different way than say a N95 mask, which has spun bound and melt blown fabric, which makes the mask. Now, a fabric, disposing a fabric and disposing a battery are two different things. But that's where lies the complexity of medical technology. Unlike pharmaceuticals, where in one medicine you would have 2 or 3 ingredients, an ECG machine has 272 components, a ventilator close to 800 components, an MRI machine close to 6,500 components. Each one of them, it could be a tungsten filament, it could be a contrast media, it could be a gel, needs to be disposed in a very different manner using the various product related guidelines around the product, and overall within the ambit of biomedical waste management rules. But there is one important element that I didn't cover in my presentation, and that is radiopharmaceutical. Pharmaceutical products are chemical entities that have radiological properties and are used for scanning or treatment. Again, the bottleneck is in the value chain. These are very evolving fields where actually an effort by a spirited community can actually make a lot of difference for patients and for the country, for the world. Radiopharmaceuticals for example, we use technetium-99 in cancer care, in scanning. But technetium-99 is produced from moly-99. So enriched uranium leads to moly. Moly-99 comes, we use technetium generator and we make technetium-99. There is only one place in the entire country to do that conversion from moly-99 to technetium-99. Now, when that happens, because technetium-99 has only a shelf life of 6.5 hours, with only one place in the country to be able to do so, you obviously cannot reach everybody in the country in 6.5 hours. And that's where the reason why I remembered is that radiopharmaceuticals and radioisotopes, when we use in medical technology, again, would have a very different way of disposing. But I think even within the segment of radioisotopes, there are huge opportunities, and I see a lot of opportunities being lost by lack of focus on medical technology. And therefore, what I would really be requesting the organizers of this wonderful conference is to see which projects of national importance where chemistry plays a very important and critical role could be prioritized, and we could support and handhold the team to actually convert the innovation into product realization.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, for the detailed answer about that particular question. So having raised that particular topic about this limited approach or the bottlenecks which are involved this kind of medical technology. So sir had mentioned about the catalysis product and also the polyethylene derivatives, which are severely limited in terms of production. So why has the production of such materials have been limited? Is it because of the lack of motivation from the researchers, or is it because of the some other criteria, or did not reverse engineering help in getting to the roots of what are the fundamentals of that kind of products?
So, a good question. Three primary reasons. One primary reason is the lack of a priority list of R&D for healthcare. You see, every university research group does research on what's the strong domain expertise their faculty has, what are the infrastructure and instruments that they may have, and what is the ability of a research group working in that department to fulfill. That need not be necessarily the priority of the country. And such a priority is never told to universities. So, the absence of a priority list which deserves R&D, which needs R&D, is the first reason. To solve this, what we have done, more as Kalam Institute of Health Technology, which is a technology policy unit for Government of India, every 6 months, we track burden of disease. What's the main killer in the country? Now, every disease has therapies associated with it, treatments associated with it, one-to-many relationship. Every treatment has technologies associated with it, again, one-to-many relationship. Which means for every disease, you have technologies which you take care in development and research and production, you can actually take care of the disease. Now, in this list of technologies, we may have some, we may not have some. What we don't have becomes a priority subset one. We then look at trade deficit, what's imported and what's exported. What we are not making and only importing is a priority. Again, it gives a list. We merge these two lists to bring out a national list of priorities for R&D on science and technology for healthcare. That list is available on the website of Kalam Institute of Health Technology. But absence of such a list and financial support to research institutions on this list is the first reason. The second reason is what the previous speaker was mentioning about PLI, the Production Linked Incentive Scheme on pharmaceuticals and medical devices. The medical devices PLI scheme of Government of India is actually chaired by me. The scheme was drafted by a committee which is chaired by me, and we monitor the scheme. The reason why some of these products could not be promoted was market viability. It was not possible to produce them vis-a-vis our friends in the neighborhood, particularly in Southeast Asia, other countries. Now, what PLI scheme has done is that it gives a 5% revenue incentive on sales of a company if it produces 57 APIs. There are 57 active pharmaceutical ingredients which have been selected in first round, and if any company were to produce one of these 57, 5% of their annual sale will be incentive from the central government. Similarly, 4 categories of medical devices consisting of about 30 medical devices categories have also been selected. Now, we did this, but we did it very late. We should have done this 10 years ago. And then we would have many of these ingredients like ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, etc., coming into production line. And the third one is, and apologies that this discussion is turning out to be also on trade apart from science. The third one is something which the students and listeners may like to do further work and understanding. There is something called inverted duty structure. So if I have to make this phone or a projector remote, this has multiple ingredients. It could be API in case of pharmaceuticals, it could be sensor in case of ventilators and so on. For many years, the ingredients, customs duty, basic customs duty was 7.5%, which means if I have to buy the ingredients and make it here, the duty I pay on ingredient is 7.5%. But if I have to import this drug or import this medical device, the import duty was 0% or 2.5%. So who will make? It's cheaper to buy the machine or the drug than to buy the ingredients and make it. Now, this inverted duty structure for a long time did not allow right areas to be getting economic viability for production and research. It requires long-term research, and therefore these three reasons: the priority listing of R&D for healthcare and funding as per those priorities, the production-linked incentive, and the correction of inverted duty structures are broadly three principles which can actually guide over the next decade or so research on right domains, research on domains that have direct societal value, and research on domains that are strategic for countries' economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for elaborating again on this topic. So, I'm left with the last question for this session. So, I believe prosthetics and orthotics will also be considered under this medical technology domain. So where does India stand in terms of development of those advanced prosthetics? Because as so far I have understood that R&D has been severely limited in the Indian scenario, and also the funding aspect has been also limited to a great extent. But I guess recently we have been picking up pace.
So we are actually, as I said, almost 78% import dependent on medical technology. Medical technology ranges from an N95 mask to MRIs, from IVDs to radioisotopes, from CT scans to ECG machines. It's a very diverse, extremely technologically complex segment. And we have been on back foot for decades, and now we are in a 78% import dependency. Unless good institutions and good groups pick up 3 or 4 areas of application of science in direct product realization, which includes orthotics. It includes, for example, the faciomaxillary joints, which are used for patients who have undergone surgeries for oral cancer, are not made in India. It's pure chemistry. And there is no reason why we should not be making it in India. And therefore, we are not in a very formidable position, to be honest to your end question. And therefore, if 3 or 4 areas, like the ones that you mentioned, like the ones I've shared, like the ones that the august faculty of the institute could come up with post this conference, could be selected, there is no reason why a very focused support and hand-holding and collaboration couldn't be bridged to ensure that in next 2 years, we are able to provide a science-based solution which targets these focused areas.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. So it was very interesting to know about the various facets of this medical technology related issues, and also the solutions which can be which are indeed feasible by the Indian community, and which have been not so far been addressed by the Indian researchers. So I guess like this talk will be an eye opener to the administrations handling this kind of like courses, and they can also would be like looking forward to introduce this kind of medical technology courses into the curriculum, so that it will be beneficial to the students, and also like once students are benefited, they will also like look forward to joining this kind of courses. And it will be great, like also like sir would give a hint towards for the students, especially in the undergraduate and the graduate students, like how the pathway should be if they are interested in getting into medical technology. And if with these few words, I would like to thank you again for giving us such an enlightening and also like a very broad understanding about this medical technology devices and the scenario in India. And I'm sure like many of the students will now come up with many queries which I might not be able to cater at this point of time, but at some later point of time we should be able to like delegate those questions to you. And that is how it is very, very important that students need to be informed and need to be aware about this kind of opportunities which are existing in medical technology. So thank you again for providing us this insights about this medical technology arena, and also for joining us for this symposium amidst your busy schedule. So I thank you again.
Thank you very much, and my respectful regards to all the teachers, my teachers, the teachers very senior and the current teachers, because I think they are building the institution. And it was a very happy moment to hear from Soumya ji that there was an COVID kit development by the institute itself. And I think it's only a start of a great journey for the scientific departments there. My respects and regards to all the teachers and faculty there, and also best wishes to all the students. Thank you, and Saira.
Thank you, sir.